I want to ask you is, what are the ramifications of your entry to the Gaza Strip being banned? What does it mean?
Well, being refused entry to Gaza essentially means that Israel has decided they're not going to allow democratically elected members of the European Parliament meet their counterparts elected by the Palestinian people in Gaza. It's a direct interference with the democratic process, and for a state that consistently argues that it's the only democratic state in the region, that seems to me to be a self-defeating process on their part.
Now, you talk about needing to achieve progress. You talk about the EU needing to achieve real progress, and at the same time you say that the EU can't preordain a solution. So what do you mean when you talk about progress? And if you can use the word progress in the answer.
Well, the progress that has to be made initially is that the representatives of both sides in the conflict, directly involved, the Israelis and the Palestinians, have to be sat around a table with the clear intention of producing a result which is acceptable to both sides. Now, inevitably, there are regional sides to this as well. There's Lebanon, there's Syria, there's Jordan, all have an interest in what the outcome is going to be, and they clearly have a part to play, just as Egypt has a part to play. And so this is a much more complex situation than we have, for instance, in Northern Ireland, because you have so many states involved with an interest in what the outcome is. So the European Union and the United States, in my view, have jointly to insist upon all the players coming together in various fora to work out what the solution is going to be. We know what the broad parameters are: a two-state solution based on the 1967 borders, but there are lots of issues in around that: the status of Jerusalem, the status of refugees, the status of settlers, the security arrangement that a new Palestinian state will have, etc., etc. All of these things have to be worked out. The role, what do we do with the 8,000 odd prisoners that there are in Israeli jails, and that also needs to be addressed. So the whole range of issues there that have to be resolved in negotiations.
Talk about the fact that it can't be a win-win situation. You say that it has to be win-win and lose-lose. So maybe you might just dwell on that for a moment, that idea of, I suppose we'd call it compromise.
Well, I mean, there is no negotiations ever where everybody wins everything they want, or that they would like to have. They have to lose things, and they have to be prepared going into negotiations to accept that they're not going to get everything. So there has to be lose-lose, but it has to be such that nobody walks away feeling that they have been unfairly done by. That's as true for the Israelis as it is true for the Palestinians. So, you know, when I say it can't be all win-win, that it also has to be lose-lose, that's what I mean. That people have to accept that they're not going to get everything they want, because it's not possible in a situation where each side believe there is right on their side.
Now, you talked about finding people despondent when you were there. You might start with that and then move into the point that you made, that they were cheered and heartened by the EU's own statement, and then the importance of that statement in your eyes, given that it's a concrete, real thing now.
Well, when the delegation arrived in Bethlehem, and on meetings we had in Bethlehem and indeed in Hebron, there was a fair amount of despondency around. People did not see how the situation could improve, because Obama had failed to insist on the freeze on settlements. The offer that Netanyahu was making about a temporary freeze on settlements, but not in Jerusalem, was clearly unsatisfactory, and there's no way that the moderate leadership of the Palestinians could go into negotiations on that basis. So there's a lot of pessimism around. Then subsequent to the European Union making its statement, the foreign ministers making its statement, reiterating the position of the European Union about a two-state solution, about it being based on the 1967 borders, and most importantly that there be a settlement freeze and that the Jerusalem would be the capital of two states, not purely of the Israeli state, was a basis for people believing that this finally was the European Union getting serious about their responsibilities in the region.
Given that you've been involved in this for a long time, would you say that it marks a change in the EU's commitment? You might just reflect on it.
Yes, it does. This does mark a change of gear, if you like, in the European Union. Up to now, 6 months ago, it would have been impossible to get a unanimous decision on the terms of that motion or the terms of that statement. So they've all recognised that we're in a situation now where if movement does not take place, then the likelihood is that we're going to re-enter a period of serious violence. That's the reality, because if there's no hope, then we get violence. That's always been the case, and it will be the case again. So I think the member states have recognised that. It's not that every single one of them are 100% happy with what they've agreed to, and they will require to be pushed to actually put flesh on the bones, to insist on Israel doing certain things, to insist on Hamas doing certain things, but also, more importantly, insist on the United States taking up the same position that the European Union is taking up, and to re-establish its credentials with the Palestinian leadership and not just with the Israeli leadership.
Now, obviously, we all know there are many obstacles, but you talked quite passionately about what the public's role in all of this is. Yes, you're an MEP, yes, there are high-powered delegations. What can the public do? And if you can start your answer by saying the public role.
The public role in all of the member states, in Ireland in particular, who have traditionally been very friendly towards both the Palestinians and the Israelis, it's extremely important. And I believe, apart from a whole lot of other wrong things the Irish government are doing, I think Micheál Martin is doing the right thing on the Palestinian question. He was right to look to go into Gaza. He was right to protest about being refused to go into Gaza. But now he needs to do more. He needs to actually make it clear to Israel that contracts that we have to give out by the state will not go to companies that are involved in settlements. He must insist that Israel, if it wants to do business with Ireland, must comply with international law, humanitarian law, with the Geneva Convention. All of these things, I think. It's not a question of obliging Israel to do things they're not entitled to do or shouldn't be doing, but that they must do if they're serious about finding a final status settlement.
But he's a politician, so what role can the public play, not just in Ireland but in the Union? What can they do now to really urge?
Well, the role of the public, I think, is to encourage those who have a good position, like Micheál Martin, by writing to him, telling him that they agree with what he's doing, but that he must go that step further, and that they must also get in touch with the TDs of all of the political parties, the MEPs of all of the political parties, making it clear what they would like to see happen. Again, they don't necessarily have to know the detail of the issue. They simply want to insist that there should be justice for the Palestinians and security for the Israelis. That's basically what we're looking for.
So finally, having been on yet another trip, what would you describe your own personal view now? Are you more optimistic? Are you the same? Do you see a big long road ahead? Are you troubled? How would you describe your own personal response to that trip?
Well, inevitably I have mixed feelings, because the situation I saw on the ground was very depressing in terms of the eviction of families, the taking of their homes, the taking over of houses in the old city, pushing Palestinians and Muslims out, attempts to take control of mosques and turn them into synagogues, etc. All of this is not in the interests of peace and living together. At the same time, the recent move by the European Union to restate its position offers a glimmer of hope that things could change, but it won't happen unless the public also get involved, insist upon the politicians that they actually use their influence with Israel, with the Palestinians, to get them around the table to find a solution. It could be done in 6 to 12 months' time. It could be done. It's simply, we know what the solution will be at the end of the day. It's a question of getting them to agree.
And so you've already had a conversation, I believe, with Cathy Ashton, and so you've already started the process of getting her involved. What response did you get from her?
Well, Cathy Ashton is the new High Representative for the European Union. She's a member of the Commission, as well as being a representative of the Council, so it's a fairly unique position. She's accountable to the European Parliament, so I'll be tabling questions to her about the Palestinian situation. I've already asked her to look again at the conditionality that is being set in relation to Hamas and engaging with Hamas. We all know that Hamas have elements within it which are fundamentalist, but there are people there also who are Democrats. I think we need to find a way of bringing them in out of the cold. If we're serious about reconciliation between the Palestinian factions, then we have to accept that we're going to have to deal with all of the factions.
So she's going to have to get in there pretty sharply.
She's going to have to get in pretty quick, and I think she could make her name by being the person who actually leads the way on the issue of finding a solution to this conflict.
Well, no, she might even usurp Tony Blair.
Absolutely.